Hello, hello. Good evening. This is Slay and Friends. Thank you very much for stopping by. Now, before I introduce my co-hosts here and, kind of get started into this evening's program, uh, I wanted to say a few words. Kind of given the recent kind of trend of a man's podcast, I feel it's necessary to address probably the elephant in the room here. I started this very recently, where this is episode 2. I started this with a few of my friends who spent a lot of time just bullshitting about real life things. It's never been about hate. It's never been about blaming other people for things, so on and so forth. Kind of the common trend that I see a lot with the Manosphere podcasts and stuff like that have been around hating somebody or blaming somebody for something and trying to find the words of wisdom to guide impressionable young people down a path of hatred. Whether that's their intention or not, that's exactly what's happening. I want to state what happens here on this podcast is not anything other than us discussing ideas and trying to relate it to real world things. So, with that being said, this is not going to be a podcast for somebody looking for excuses of why their life is going wrong. If you have issues, feel free to leave a comment, chat, and we can absolutely discuss what we have experienced in our lives and use that knowledge for good and for bettering yourself. But I'm going to drop a bombshell here. Again, the topic of this podcast is the superpower of justification. I'm going to cut all the red tape and big super climactic reveal here, and I'm going to say that justifying things is probably what has put you in a bad spot to begin with. So, using your superpower of justification should be justifying your actions to better yourself, not justifying actions against somebody to make you either feel better, so on and so forth. But we'll get into it. We'll go into a lot more detail, things like that. But this whole bombshell, if you feel like your life is not where you want it to be, 9 times out of 10, well, I'll go as far as to say 10 times out of 10, the ball is in your court because you are the only person that has control over your life. But with that being said, I am joined today with 2 of my really good friends, Anime King and K.O. Davey. We're going to be discussing today the superpower of justification. How's it going, guys? How you doing tonight?
And I'm doing pretty good. I'm pretty good, man. Glad I could be here for episode 2. Again, if you guys weren't here yesterday by chance, I was asleep. Sun took my tail. But I made it here for the second episode. I'm super proud of Slay for doing this. I've known him for probably a little over a month now, and I mean, just seeing the steps and the growth he's taken and doing something like this. I mean, it's just something you're excited to see and blessed to be asked to be a part of. So, thank you, man, for having me.
Of course, man. And I appreciate your kind words. Anime, you're
All right.
uncharacteristically quiet today.
Sorry. It's anyone was here for episode 1, everyone will know. Like if you're returning for episode 2, you will know I am currently at work. I work 4 p.m. to 12:30 p.m. or a.m. So there's going to be a lot of noise on my end, but and bear with me on that, and also bear with me with the fact that I take conversations all over the place, and I'm trying to work on that. But um, I like to say, I've known Slay for a little while now. I met him through a cousin, and so I know Slay personally in real life.
Shout out to
We
Hellwell,
have,
by the way. If Hellwell
yeah.
is watching, shout out to you, brother. Hope you're doing all right.
Thank you.
Um, so I started streaming around the same time Slay did. He did a little bit before me, but I was there. We were bumping off of each other. We were playing video games together, such as Fortnite, Apex. Now we don't really play too much. He's on PC. He is upgraded to PC. I am still on Xbox, but I've seen the growth in Slay's community, and it feels nice to really be a part of it, especially now. I lost touch with Slay for a few years, and then had recently got back in touch and stayed in touch since. And just the progress that he's made, and as what Davey has said, just a short month, it's phenomenal. It's encouraging, and the topics that we discussed even before the podcast was a thing has been phenomenal. It's a great place to be. Every single day when I'm at work, I always look to see if Slay's there to have a conversation, to talk. But welcome everybody, and I hope you enjoyed today's content.
And just for the record, I did not pay any of them to say that. I promise. But getting into it here. So,
Oh yeah, by the way, when am I getting my $300?
oh,
Yeah.
get out of here.
Go ahead, Brad.
Anyway, so the topic of discussion today, the superpower of justification. So anybody that did tune into episode 1 and coming back here, I had asked you guys to kind of think about justification and what it meant to you, and I kind of put the ball in these two in their corners here to come up with either things that they've experienced in their life that they felt they might have went down the justification rabbit hole to doing something that they wouldn't normally do, whether it was for good or for bad, or if they just reacted to something and justified it with the first action done against them. With that being said, I wanted to ask you guys before we really get into it, did you have an example that came to mind? Was there anything that kind of stuck out that you wanted to talk about today?
Davey first.
I guess it depends on which route you want to go, Slay. In this one, it's like, as a kid, I just remember doing a lot of things out of justification. But as an adult, I guess I learned that you don't necessarily have to do anything. You either find a reason to or want to find a reason to, and then you kind of act on it. So I guess now, like when I do something, I know either way, I just felt justified in doing it. But if you want to go to a certain scenario, um, what is a good one? Okay, if you will allow me to kind of recycle this one.
Yeah, by all
Um,
means.
I again, we talked about my first concert. I don't know if you guys were there. I don't know if we aired the full part, but I went to my first concert last Tuesday, Kendrick Lamar concert, and I don't like crowds. Don't like them. I don't like being bumped unnecessarily. Like if you play football, you know what I'm saying. You know it's gonna happen. Shoulder pads are big and shit like that. That don't bother me. I'm just talking about people running into you for no reason. So I went to my first concert. I'm standing there with my girlfriend. We just got there, probably there a total of like 2 or 3 minutes maybe. And I hear footsteps behind me, and they're like loud, kind of moving fast. Dude runs past me, bumps my shoulder. Now I know I voluntarily put myself in this situation. I, told my girlfriend, yeah, I'll go with you. I'm not the most comfortable, but I'll go. So me going to this event that I'm not comfortable in, after he bumped me, I told her, like, hey, if I hand you my glasses, I'm probably gonna, slap this dude, slap the shit out of him. And me knowing that, I guess I justified it, knowing that that's probably something I would normally do, but because it's a place that I'm uncomfortable, I guess I felt like I don't need much of a reason. I don't even want to be here in the first place, and this will give me an excuse to slap the shit out of you, and then I have to leave, possibly.
So do you think that maybe you justified that through just like your general uncomfortableness, not necessarily the action taken against you. I think you actually put it really well with it. It was an excuse to do it. It wasn't necessarily like anything other than that. Um, but no, that's actually a really good example. So something that I feel like every person on this planet has always either succumbed to or even had a premonition of is, especially when you're having a real shit day, like an absolute terrible day. Car breaks down, someone you love is in the hospital, your boss at work was really on your ass today. You have a monumentally shit day, and one person that might not be having such a shit day, but they're doing something that goes against kind of how you're feeling in the moment. It's slighting you in some way. We often justify lashing out at them, whether it be physical or otherwise just verbal assault, and you justify it. And again, it could be an excuse to do that. You wanted to do that, and now you're flying off the panhandle for whatever reason. But that, in and of itself, is something that I feel like a lot of people suffer from, and they succumb to it a lot. And the power of justification is very powerful. It's very potent. That's why I consider it a superpower. I guarantee you know at least two people that name all of these really insignificant events that have happened in their life, but because of this, because of that, because of this, because of that, I'm going to do this. And the this part seems very drastic. If you were to take any of those events, it would be escalating way further than the first event, but because it's all happened at once, the human mind, you want to do this. You need to do this because you feel a certain way. But you're trying to make reasons up for it to sound less bad. So especially if you're telling your significant other, like, this guy cut me off. I was in traffic. Hey, what's up, B? This guy cut me off in traffic, and my car is already making really weird noises. And this
Wait, what are we
person
talking
was power of justification, lady.
Alright. Well, my bad. I was gone. I was gone all day.
Oh, I thought you were in the other Discord.
Now, if I sound dead, then that's because I am, because my allergies are really bad. So if I sneeze like 500 times in a row, that's why.
Okay, well, just mute your mic if you feel a sneeze coming on.
Yep.
But back to what I was saying, somebody cuts you off in traffic, boom, that's your excuse. You're going to fly off the panhandle. You're going to try to pit them into the guardrail and kill them because, your car was in the shop, you just got it back. You have a kid you have a kid on the way. You have all of these different things, and they cut you off. Everybody was fine. Just the act of you getting cut off was merely kind of what could be described as a power move, not necessarily a dangerous move, but you justify it as it being a dangerous maneuver, and you fly off the panhandle. Again, it's a superpower of justification, and that's how I feel about it, because you can find a reason to react a certain way to any situation through the power of justification, and it's led to great evils, and it's led to amazing things happening. So that's back to your example, right? You're uncomfortable. You're already in a spot that you don't want to be in. People are brushing up against you. And again, you are not comfortable. This is not a good area for you, for your psyche. And some guy eventually does bump into you. And now your lizard brain has registered that as an act of violence. So your lizard brain now is going to take full reign over your civilized brain. And it's going to say, you need to stand your ground. You have to fight for that territory because this dude is walking all over you right now. and you justify escalating it to violence, even though that dude probably got bumped into as well to get bumped into you. So it's like,
Right.
you know, that's that's where justification falls for me into the bad spot, or like justifying like evil actions, is because that person probably didn't mean anything by it. There are
Mhm.
cases where people mean something by it, and it makes it a lot easier to justify matching or escalating evil actions. I'll admit it. That shit happens to me all the time, where somebody does something blatantly to either get ahead for themselves or purposely put somebody back. But, you know, you are in control of your actions. That's the one thing
Mhm.
for sure. Nobody has mind control. Nobody can take over your body and make it do something. You control your reactions to any situation. And that's the end story. That's all there is. But anime, I wanted to hear from you. What situations have you felt like you've been able to utilize your power of justification?
Can I give you more of like a scenario?
Yeah, I absolutely.
All right. So this scenario, you were in a relationship with this person, with a person, and you had a child with that person, and the relationship did not end on good terms whatsoever. It was really, really bad. Um, you're going through custody on trying to get, your child. You get it situated to where it's in a comfortable situation, and events happen to where you are not able to be near. You had to travel. During that time in travel, another situation happens and you are unable to travel back at the time that you had planned. And during that time, the person you were with has done absolutely awful, awful things to your child. And their justification for it is they're a spitting image of you. There's not a single difference. They are like a clone of you, and they justify it with saying they did it in spite of you. Now, the scenario that I'm telling you is mine. My son has been through some traumatizing stuff by his biological mother. And this may not be like the best way to try to shed a little bit of light on it, but I'm also trying to, me myself, get a little better understanding on it. And I believe that this topic is a good one to try and help with that.
Okay. So I guess the question then would be, she used her superpower justification to do great bodily and mental harm to your child that I think we can all agree is pretty terrible. Children are innocents, and that's messed up. But with that being said, have you felt like you've taken any responsibility for that? Oh, okay. All right, that's fine. Sorry. Uh, he's got to step out really quick. So we'll get back to that in a second. B, for you, have you come across a situation where somebody has done something terrible, or you have felt like doing something terrible because of a list of reasons?
Um, there was my sixth grade teacher.
All right.
So, with my IEP at the time, I was allowed to use a calculator. So, I went up to her for a problem and I was like, hey, do you mind if I use my calculator on this problem? I think it was multiplication or something with fractions, something that you learned in sixth grade. But, I asked her if I could do it and she was like, yeah, my second grader could do this, so no, you don't need your calculator.
Huh.
A couple other times, like one time, have you ever heard of iReady?
I feel like I have. I don't actually know off the top of my head what that is.
It's this like random website where it
Sorry
has
guys.
No, you're okay, man.
math and ELA, but you do lessons that were assigned for your path through a diagnostic. And me and this boy had to stay in a classroom to finish a lesson that we hadn't done for math. And we started talking. We were still doing our work, and she came in and she was like, "Hey, you should." She it was kind of snotty. She was like, "You should be doing your work," and I showed her my Chromebook, and I was like, "I am doing my work," and then she started yelling at me for talking back. She was like, "You cannot talk back to me. You should something about you shouldn't have showed me your Chromebook and just kept doing your work." And she
Okay.
got mad at me.
So,
She,
sorry. Yeah, go on.
you go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, keeping it on brand. Do you feel like she kind of justified that because she felt
She was
like,
the teacher and had like an authority above me.
yeah, okay,
It still continued to the point. I forget this other time, but she had yelled at me again. Going back to the thing where she said her second grader could do a math problem that a sixth grader couldn't, that just made me feel like generally hurt inside.
I mean, yeah,
So,
that's pretty awful thing to say because I mean that's the other thing too. A lot of people justify doing certain things or like having things happen to them just due to their age and status and your age and status in this example, right? There's a famous
yeah,
quote that I quote very often in my life, and it's from, I believe, Albert Einstein. But if you judge a fish on how well it can climb a tree, that fish is going to grow up its whole life thinking it's stupid because fish can't climb trees. That's not what they're known for. If you judge that on how well it can swim, that's an avenue that it's got a lot of authority in. And a lot of people have strengths and weaknesses, and it's quite common for a lot of people to struggle with math. It's like not a very uncommon thing. Which
yeah.
I didn't get good at math until I graduated.
yeah,
I had
right?
struggled with math like all throughout ever since you started math. It might have just been because of my ADHD or one of my mental illnesses, but
Well,
I went home that night and I told my parents. I don't know if it was that night actually, but I told them eventually, and they ended up talking to the principal about it. The teacher got in trouble, and she called my parents, crying about losing her job,
huh.
and so she kind of tried to change it, change the subject to make her the victim in that situation.
Yeah.
And a couple weeks later, she took me down the hall to a different classroom, and she started talking to me about like, hey, I didn't mean to come off rude or anything. That's just a way that I teach, and if you ever feel uncomfortable with anything, let me know before. It was either let me know before you go to your parents again, or just talk to me. So I was just like, and then I went home and told my parents that. And at last year in seventh grade, I went. She came into the cafeteria as we were at lunch, and I went up to her and I talked to her, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I want to be a principal now." So that kind of made me feel like I don't know how that made me feel, but it just wasn't like I didn't feel like it was the best decision for her. And
Yeah. Well, given her track record and
yeah,
that much authority, that you could justify a lot there. But I I have something to kind of pose now as a thought for everyone to kind of ponder. But
can I continue for a sec?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done. My bad.
No, it's fine. But my teachers that year, my teachers in seventh grade, they were absolutely amazing. I had a straight A throughout the whole year in math class. They made me actually like math and helped me overcome my issues with it and difficulties with it. So I literally have no words of how grateful I am for those two teachers, but they changed my grades in math for the better. And I had told her about it. I was like, "Yeah, I've had straight A's this whole year." And then she had the audacity to say, "Yeah, you learned it from me."
Hmm.
It was kind of a playful tone, but I really didn't find it funny or amusing at all because of the way she had treated me.
Yeah, naturally.
And now I'm done.
Okay. Well, with that kind of story, what it sounded like is being in a place of authority innately justifies a lot of actions, right? So we can talk about we've been mainly focusing on the bad side of justification now, and now I want to switch gears a little bit and kind of bring up the thought of flipping the script and actually justifying really good actions. And kind of the theme of last night's podcast was, can you have one without the other? Should the whole idea be accepted with a bad side to a good side? But I digress. For justification, justifying really good actions, a lot of people will tell you, it shouldn't take much to justify a really good action. A really good action's free to do. Like, it costs $0 to not be an asshole, right? Like, it should just be something we innately do, and you shouldn't need justification for it. But there's a lot of circumstances where justifying an action just solely based off of kind of how it affects you, whether it's something that is really deep, something that's really easy, like paying for someone's lunch, right? Let's go that route. You're paying for an additional lunch and you're justifying it as like, you don't want to see this guy be hungry. You don't want to see, you don't want to see this person be hungry, whether it's purely selfless or if it's, like I work with this guy, we do a lot of heavy lifting, I know he's hungry, I gotta feed him. Or she gets really spacey if she doesn't eat, so I'm just gonna pay for her meal, absolutely no questions asked. Those kind of actions to justify, right, whether it's for self-gain or for selfless reasons, there's still a level of justification there. And I feel like it does need to be said that there doesn't have to be a whole laundry list of justifications for big or small acts of good, just like there doesn't have to be a long laundry list of justifications for doing something bad. But with that being said, in your guys' life, was it easier to justify doing good things for somebody? Or did you find yourself like actually struggling to maintain a positive frame of mind when doing something for somebody else? We'll start with you, Davey, because we did you first before. Unless Davey is not here.
Really quick before we jump on.
Yeah.
Sorry, after I gave my scenario, I kind of like disappeared for a second. My fiance had called me. My son had climbed out of his crib and was running around.
Oh, I gotcha.
So I didn't hear a single word that you had said.
Yeah, that's all right. Hey, we were essentially just we were giving you your time to process the news, as it were.
Oh, so you didn't talk about it at all?
No, we didn't get a chance to. We can go back to it before we hop into a whole other subject here.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Go ahead. Let Davey do it. Go through.
All right.
But as far as justifying good things, I think fairly easy. I mean, for me, again, it's kind of like the being uncomfortable with doing something. I guess a lot of times, and I think more so from people outside looking in, you know, it's bigger. It's more of like a justification thing. Because to me personally, I can just go give somebody like on the side of the road that needs some water. I can give you a water bottle, or I can even give you $20. And they're like, "Why'd you give them 20?" I'm like, "Well, because like that 20 is not gonna hurt me."
Yeah.
And it's like those things. I feel like more so, which is weird when you think about the thought process behind it, is like why people want to know, or people want to know why you justify doing something nice, but when you do something that's bad, they're like, "Oh, I get it." But
That
yeah,
that's a really good point.
yeah, I won't go on. Sorry,
Well,
but
why do you think that is? Actually, that's a really good thought. Why is it more recognizable to do something out of spite or retaliation? It's a callback. Justifying a retaliative action that, again, uh, either mirrors or escalates whatever that person did. Why is it easier for people to understand that train of thought rather than rather than the latter when you do something really nice?
in my opinion, I
Yeah.
feel like there's like this false sense among everybody that everybody's a good person, right?
Yeah.
So when you go into it with the mindset, or everybody thinks you're a good person, but when a good act is done, why do you question it? Like, and I think it's because we all know a lot of people are not going to give somebody that don't have money $20 and be like, oh, I would have gave him $1, I would have gave him $5, and it's like, okay, that's cool, but like nobody thinks. I mean, yes, they may work out there for hours and they may get money throughout the day, but who's to say he made any money that day? You got to eat 3 times a day. I'm sure that whoever it is may or may not have a refrigerator to store stuff, perishables in, may not have something to cook it on. So it's just like, I, why not, you know, feed the man for a day instead of just giving him $1 and being like, well, hope you can get the rest. I don't think I'm a saint by any means, but it's like that thought process has stuck with me more as I've gotten older. It's like it's easier to justify doing bad things, but when it comes to doing something good, it's like, why does it have to be that hard? Why does it have to be that big of a, like, would somebody do it for me mentality, or I would only get this out of it if it was me in that situation? It's like, no, I'm blessed to make a decent amount of money, and if I can, give him $20 or tip a waiter $20, and my food might have only been 12 or 13 bucks. Like, I think that's something like people actually need to take a bigger stance on, is the positive end of things. When I think this world, especially now, is real negative.
Yeah. I agree. I think the bigger thing here that needs to be looked at is why it seems to be easier to for people to understand the level of justification for hardship is because you see that hardship all the time. Because I think as a society, we've all recognized that if you're toting really good things, you're you're bragging. You're being, you're being you're looking for attention in that regard. So if like really good things are happening, you don't you don't want to hear about it because chances are it's not reciprocated and you're not in the best place and nobody really has the patience to hear somebody else's really good things happening when nothing good is happening for them. So we've kind of conditioned away from like really decent acts and like really good, like what Mr. Beast does. The reason why it's so popular is because a lot of people wish that they could do that, but it there brings a genuine smile to your face when somebody who's homeless gets a house all paid for, and so on and so forth. Like we all feel like we want to help out as many people as we can, but when you actually do, people question into it because I think they're genuinely curious as to, like, what was the thought process, right? Like, doesn't that put you behind? Are you in a worse spot now than you were before? Like things like that, I think are really the main reason why we question into those types of things. So, I I agree that as a society we all like to think about the worst things easily, or like more easily justified, mainly because we see them more often. So, I mean, like, how often do you hear stories of people getting cheated on, and then like a lot of people being like, I would have burned all of his stuff, or I would have taken her shit and thrown it right outside. We hear that and we immediately go like, yeah, that seems like an action that most people would take, even though you might not ever feel that justification in your own world, but you can understand how they would react that way. Versus when I hear the story of Davey giving $20 to a homeless man, the first thing is like, oh, I mean, that's really, really nice of you, but what, did you feel like you had to? Did you want to do that? And it becomes like a question into it. Why? Almost like analyzing it, right? Because I also think there's another side of this, like, how many people here have people that they know that would say absolute bullshit, like, hey, I saw a homeless guy, so I gave him my car for a little bit and he got a job, just to make them seem more boosted in stature. Like, how many people like that do we know? So I know about like 2 or 3 of them that would absolutely do that, no questions asked. And I think that might be another reason why we're questioning into it. Like, did you really do that? Or are you just saying that you did that? Are you embellishing the story to make yourself feel better? Which I guess would then come back to justifying a way to bring that person down from a really good action. So, it's funny, right? I think we all live absolutely our best lives when we forget and negate the window that people see our lives through, because we know the whole story. We know the truth, and we're the only ones that know the truth and nothing but the truth, so on and so forth. We're the only ones that absolutely know for sure why things happened, and the story that people see through, again, that window, whether it be social media or just the occasional, I just ran into this guy on the street, he said all of this and that, but I don't buy it. Everybody only has this narrow vision of your life, so it's a lot easier to justify things going wrong in that window, because again, it's more common for things to go wrong than it is right. So, I think in an effort to please other people, or to like really think about other people's actions and things, it honestly is a waste of energy to begin with. But we're gonna switch gears here, because I kind of talked myself into another point here. I think one of the biggest opportunities for our human brain to justify things that would seem irrational or crazy to anyone else is usually done and found in relationships. Now, bear with me here, but how many times in your life have you ever sat there and gone, that makes sense, to somebody destroying private property? The like a general consensus of somebody actually burning clothes in a justified way. I can count of like 3 other topics, but as like a general consensus, no questions asked, my boyfriend slash girlfriend cheated. Boom. instantly in our mind we have this subspace of they might justify some really crazy shit, and it's probably like of the norm. Burning clothes is one of them. And if you think about it, right? Think of it this way. The cheating didn't harm anything other than your relationship, your mental and emotional health, right? It wasn't physical at all. Burning clothes is physical, right? Myself, I would feel that would be on par for having the shit kicked out of you by your significant other, burn all of their stuff, But even then, if we say, and there's stories all about it, where a significant other is absolutely being abusive physically and just going to town on them, and eventually the other significant other finds a knife or a gun and retaliates with that amount of violence, and the majority of people, me included in that majority, say good for that other person. Like, get them off of you. Do what you got to do. But when you really sit there and dissect it and break it down, we're justifying murder because of an emotional and physical abuse, and we're justifying destruction of property, which we collectively have deemed a very immoral act. It's just funny how we work, it's funny that we have allowed these kind of behaviors to become the norm, and it's all through the process of justification. Because again, I think we all want to be on that level of, don't mess with me. I will do this to you if you mess with me, and it's not going to be pretty, and it absolutely isn't. It never is, especially when burning clothes and destroying, like one of the stories that I just heard recently. This guy cheated on his wife, so she destroyed his $10,000 golf clubs. Like, in any other circumstance, you'd be like, that woman is absolutely insane. Why would she do that? Like, think of it like he bought her something, it was the wrong gift, so she destroyed the clubs. That's not justified. That's crazy. You're being crazy. And then you talk about the cheating, all of a sudden it's no longer crazy. Well, it might be a little crazy, but you'll actually have people on your side for it. That to me is just like insane. It's like collectively as a species, we can justify these kind of things. And as our topic of yesterday with retaliation, we justify a lot of retaliation. And we were doing it yesterday. We were talking about if somebody does physical harm to you, you're absolutely in the right and justified to do physical harm back to defend yourself. Again, it's up to really whoever is involved if it is justified or if it is a moral action. But I think that justification is one of those things that it's so personal, right? When you're justifying something, it's only you. And you can take ideas from other people. For instance, if you absolutely agreed with that woman that destroyed the $10,000 golf clubs because of his infidelity, then you'll probably replicate that in some other way. Like, the only thing I can think of is if I cheated on my wife, she would just destroy all of my guitars and PC. That it would be insane for me. That would just be too much. So, in your guys' opinion on this topic specifically, what are your thoughts? What are your ideas? Like, do you think that there's a reason why it's so widely accepted, or do you guys just kind of like, you feel like it got really out of hand and we're just living with the consequences now?
I'll let one of them go if they want to, since I went first last time.
I mean, this is a free-for-all now. This isn't like somebody's account.
Oh,
This is just thought for thought. So if you have a thought, let me know.
I mean, I guess I'd say that it's just kind of gotten out of hand. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, we even put it into our laws, as far as justification for doing this. If someone, breaks into your home and you have a firearm, different things like that. Like you have some states you have a right to shoot them, some states you don't have a right to shoot, you don't have a right to kill. I mean, but other places you do, and that's all through justification. Why? Because one state or one group of people believes that, hey, if somebody breaks into your house, you should defend yourself. You're justified in defending yourself, And so what started out as kind of an idea or thought process of justification became a part of our law, And I feel like a lot of the reason why people do things is out of justification through the law. And that's just kind of how we view justification now as law. Like, this is understandable. Everybody would see it this way, but that's just my opinion.
Okay. Well, are you the type of person that believes that because it's written in law that it's right?
Mm. It depends. Well, I guess
Okay.
no, 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 no. Actually, I think I use that as an excuse if it's justifiable through the law. I don't. Some things aren't okay, and everybody knows that. But because that's the law. You're a musician. You know, if somebody signs you to this $100 million contract, and then they're like, well, in the contract it says this, and this. If you didn't hit this many album sales, now you have to pay us for all the things that we supported you for. And that's, is that fair? No, you gave me this money to try to make something happen, and now that it didn't work, now you're wanting me to pay you all this money. But because it's in a contract, and they're justified in basically doing all this stuff that you signed off on, even though it maybe isn't morally right to do, people are going to do it because they're going to get money out of it.
Yeah.
If for a better example, like people putting car salesmen putting people in cars they can't afford,
Yeah.
and then stuff like that. I mean, is it legal? Yeah. Is it justifiable? Yeah, through the law, but is it morally justifiable? I don't think so.
But again, that harbors back to the concept of justifying morally is so personal. It
Hmm.
it's such a personal thing to think about because what you might justify, I would stay away from, and vice versa.
Right.
The leaps that I would justify to, absolutely, I agree with you. Putting somebody in any situation monetarily that would bankrupt them, I I say is absolutely immoral, and I would not ever do. I would, as a matter of fact, I would justify taking any action necessary to talk them out of the crazy, ridiculous idea. So like for me, what it comes down to is as long as we all are in agreement that justifying things for any reason, whether it be lawful or moral, it's very personal and it's up for interpretation. And it's kind of what the law has become now, is it's up into interpretation. And if it doesn't fit your interpretation, then it gets changed. Uh,
That sounds like another book I know. Continue, my bad. Funny joke.
yeah.
May I jump in here?
Yeah, of course.
So, in my personal opinion, I feel almost every single form of justification has to lie somewhere with morality, no matter what.
Okay.
Whether it's justification for a good deed or a bad deed, it all lies with someone, with an individual's morals. No matter what in life, you're always going to be at a moral standpoint, whether you're a saint or a Satan worshiper. Those are just two examples. So you could be a musician, you could be someone who plays video games, someone who goes to college, and has like a doctor or anything. Everybody has morals, no matter what. And if someone ever says they don't have morals, well, they're
They're
I want to turn
lying.
around.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they're lying.
So, in my opinion, any type of justification is going to be for them to boost their morality. So to say you do a bad deed, you stole something from a store, and you go, well, I'm sorry, I really need to use this to feed my family. You know, my son is thirsty or my daughter is thirsty. No matter what, you're trying to tie some type of morality into it to where it looks more or less like you're not doing a bad deed. Or even if you're doing a good deed, even I feel like if you're going to sit there and go and talk about doing a good deed, you're trying to boost your morality and become more popular from like, oh, well, look at me, I did this. Like Mr. Beast. That's what is one of the reasons why I do not like to watch Mr. Beast. I feel like some of the stuff he does, yeah, that is cool, it's amazing, but you shouldn't have to show the world to do it.
I guess the Mr. Beast in and of itself, and that's
Oh,
up
you just
to.
went all robotic on me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? Is that all right?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that's perfect. It was where I was at.
I got you. Mr. Beast, I feel like is a whole other topic of discussion because in line with what we're talking about, it's easily justified that this is the easiest way to monetize that action to continue doing those actions, which he's proven time and time again that is somewhat his intention. Just like accepting sponsorships to then just turn around and use whatever sponsorship money that he got to then give for that video. So, like, all in all, you can justify it one way or the other, but being a philanthropist is rough. It's a rough business to be in because it's quite literally just giving away things for free, and it's not sustainable unless you have a really good source of income. So with the rise of YouTube, Twitch, so on and so forth, with that kind of rise, it's easy to monetize that behavior by showing the world that. And I think the other thing too is you have to understand that every person on that show also makes some sort of justification to be on Mr. Beast's channel receiving these gifts, knowing that it's completely free and at the expense of Mr. Beast. You know, because I mean, think about it, right? Many of the people that he has on, like, that are part of his posse or his crew or what have you, they've been his friend for his whole life. Imagine one day I came up to you and I was like, hey, I have this YouTube channel and I give away a bunch of free shit. Do you want to be there? Again, you've known me for, however long now, like 8 years now. You've known me for a really long time, and I came up to you and said that I'm going to give away free shit. Can you, in good conscience, like, without any prior knowledge of what's going on, without me telling you that I have, however many subscribers, I don't know how many he has now, but it's up there. But can you, in good conscience, like, take my free gifts that are houses, boats, cars, SUVs, the legitimate cash amounts that I make in a year? You have to justify that as well, and you have to find that happy middle ground of, do you enjoy taking those handouts because you need it more than anyone else in the world? And are you capable of justifying that action in general for yourself? But I feel like I'm on a roll here because I just had another thought pop in my mind. Do you guys think that justification is actually a train of thought, like a logical path to reason and action? So what I mean by that is, when you think of justification, typically the way that we talk about it is like, I'm following your path of logic and I see how you arrive at this action. Do you think that justification and logic are in a symbiotic relationship, or are they like synonyms, or they're completely unrelated?
You want to go first, B?
I say we should let B go first. B hasn't spoken in a little bit. We're all pointing our fingers at B now.
B, you're muted.
Uh-oh. Huh, I don't know what happened. Maybe she woke up.
B, are you there?
Gotten a bit busy.
B. Hello?
I don't know what happened, man. But I'll let it go. Do you want to go anime or me? Oh,
Yeah.
there she is. There she is.
What were you asking?
Were you listening?
Kind of.
All right. Well, do you think that justification is just another word for a path of logic, or do you think that it's completely unrelated?
I think it's unrelated. Personally.
All right. Do you want to elaborate, or you're just going to leave it at that?
I don't really think I have an elaboration for that.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, to kind of bridge off of that, I think it's unrelated because if you're willing to approach a situation logically using the guise of a justified action might not be necessary. So if you're thinking about it logically, right? Any scenario that you're faced with, anything at all in general, anything that you're faced with, you would be able to say, my knee-jerk reaction is to punch this dude in the face. But if I punch him in the face because he said some shit, I'm probably going to be in trouble and the cops will definitely be called. Or, this guy might kick my ass, so on and so forth. Like, we have all of these different train of thoughts in scenarios. Whereas if you're just justifying an action, typically justification comes after an action is taken. So if you've knee-jerk reacted to something, typically you then backpedal afterwards to say, you know what, I'm justified in that because of this or that or the other thing. So I do agree with B that it's similar, but it usually, if you're using logic or if you have a path to logic, you're mainly thinking about it before it happens rather than justifying something that you've done or even that you're about to do, and you're not really following any path of reasonable logic. Because again, even logic that goes against the grain of what people would do in a normal scenario is still a path of logic. In justifying something, there has to be a trail of logic, whether it's flawed or not. But usually when we're talking about anything logically, it's prior to the event happening or prior to an actual action is taken. So, yeah, like I said, I agree. Do you guys agree, disagree?
Agreed.
I kind of feel like somebody's got to disagree with us at some point. We got to have like an interesting dialogue here. Do you actually disagree, or you just?
No, I'm just trying to figure out my stance, like you said, because I was like, if we all agree, it's just like,
Well, then I'll bite the bullet here, and I'll come up with an opposition then. But why do you guys agree? Why do you guys agree with that? What's your take specifically, kind of as a path of logic versus justification? What is the difference, if there is one? Which you guys said there was a difference.
For me, in my opinion, justification is just your reasoning. You know, I feel like some people, like, we view them as crazy when they do certain things, right? And then we ask them for whatever reason, like, why did you do this? Like, what made you feel justified in doing this? And when some people are saying, I just wanted to, you know what I'm saying? A lot of times when people try to give their justification for doing something, it's so that somebody may see their point of view versus like it actually being worth the action. So I don't know how to really explain that any further, but I just feel like a lot of justification is just to try to get it's something that you feel is right, something within that. You know, you're justifying it to be right and hoping that someone sees your view as right as well. So I don't know.
But you could
I don't know
argue
how to.
that. Well, you could argue that doing that is just following a train of thought,
Right.
following a path of logic.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Because again, right, the guy bumped into you. Your train of
Mm-hmm.
thought was, I'm not inside your head. I don't actually know, but evaluating from people in that scenario, they're stepping on me. They're stepping all over me. This guy thinks I'm a doormat. I'm going to show him that he's not. The only way that I can do that is to escalate this to violence because, that's the easiest way to go about this. And if I get violent with him, he'll know that I'm not fucking around and I'm nobody to mess with. So, there you go. That's a path of logic to justify an action.
Yeah.
You know, see, I believe it's not a path of logic due to the simple fact that if you're going to think logically about a situation, so to say you're in Davy's situation, but Davy escalated it and, you know, punched this man so hard he collapsed to the ground, is unconscious. If you're going to think logically in a situation, and so to say that that was the situation, I believe Davey wouldn't have thought logical because if he were to, in my opinion, when you logically think of it in a situation like that, I would personally think, okay, what can I do to approach the issue, but to not escalate the issue to where it leads to violence? Whether it's, tapping on the person going, hey, could you not bump into me? I don't like it. I'm not in a comfortable area, or whatever. Explain your situation, or just be like, hey, could you watch where you're going? But if you're gonna go for me, you're not thinking logically when you react with punching the man in the side of the head, goes unconscious. You're gonna justify it saying, oh well, he was doing all this that, but you're not going to think logically within that situation because within that situation there are many paths you could take that could have been a lot digressed than what it was.
So you're saying it'd be more logical.
No, I'm saying you're not thinking logically.
You're right. You're not, but there's other paths that you could have taken that would have been more logical to take.
Yes.
Okay. So can I add something really quick or a
Yeah,
question? I
yeah.
guess.
All right. I understand. Everybody's nervous here. We got some stage fright going on. You guys don't have to ask permission. Just chime in.
Okay. Fair enough. I just don't
you
want
know,
to feel
just
like
don't.
we're taking over and going way left.
Yeah, no, just
You
don't
know.
talk over people. That's all I ask.
Okay. So when we're talking about all these things, retaliation, justification, logic, the thing I'm starting to get out of it is it's all kind of subjective.
Yeah,
And my view on that is just like, I mean, all of it from dang near top to bottom because depending on where you grow up, the dude bumps you. Well, your logic, if you grow up in a rough area and you're raised to think that this is a sign of weakness, you know, your brain is gonna think logically to do something about it to make something, you know, happen. Probably not good for the other guy. But growing up in a different situation, that's illogical. And then you're trying to have a conversation and, you know, hoping that someone respects that you're like, hey, sticking up for yourself and voicing how you feel. And that's the logical situation. But like, yeah, go ahead, Soy. I hear you.
Well, oh no, I'm sorry. I was just taking a drink.
Oh, okay, okay. My bad. I thought you were
Yeah,
finished.
you're good.
But
No.
no, I was just thinking how crazy it is that a lot of it is really just based on who you are as an individual, you know, different circumstances of either how you grew up or how not. Because again, one thing may be logical for this person that's more so in survival mode all the time versus somebody that's like no big deal to them, you know.
Well, you actually said my point without saying my point is that
Gotcha.
there, even if, so I, in your situation, right? Somebody bumped into me
Hmm.
at a concert. Honestly, I would give two shits. I don't care. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. But my path of logic is, all right, he probably didn't mean to. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. Your path of logic is this dude is encroaching in my territory. He's trying to force his way in, or he just doesn't give a fuck that I was standing here. Therefore, I got to make him give a fuck that I was standing here. They're both paths of logic. Whether one's flawed or not is up to whoever is in that scenario, in all honesty. So, if we all agree that flawed logic is still logic, then even if we don't agree with somebody's justification to an action, it's still a path of logic. There is still a thought process there. Even if it's a preemptive strike when you're reacting, there is still logic there. Again, whether it's flawed is up to whoever's interpreting the situation, but the logic itself is the action. So let's say you didn't think, you just fucking belted the guy as soon as he bumped into you. If you didn't do that in your mind, he would have absolutely put you on your ass and done things that were unspeakable. But that's far from reality, obviously, because you didn't belt the guy and everything was fine. But in your mind, that's the path of logic, and that's how easy it is to justify things. You can justify like super aggressive and like honestly probably best quantified as terrible things preemptively because the worst could happen. This is not to get political, but this is the flawed logic that we're seeing in our nation now with the Black Lives Matter movement. Is a lot of the logic of the cops is that you have to be on your toes constantly because the worst could happen at any point. Joe Schmo that's driving home from work that has a little bit of weed in his back pocket isn't the guy that's going to pull a gun on you and murder you. But in that same quote, there might be somebody that would absolutely murder you out of justification for the other side because the cops have been so violent. So this is really where justification is an absolute superpower. And if you really want to get statistical, we can look it up. But many times that I feel like people react to situations irrationally and then justify it later, their irrationality only grows because chances are the scenario that they had painted in their head to happen wasn't going to happen. And I feel like that's also why we believed it was like a lot of logic is flawed is because we preemptively try to prevent the worst things happening, and you justify your actions as making sure that the worst doesn't happen to you, but you do the worst thing imaginable in the answer or with the guise of justification and being that person to do the bad thing first to save yourself from the bad thing happening to you. You have to understand, just like Davey said, it's all personal. A combat veteran from Iraq that sees signs of aggression isn't going to respond with the same level of intensity, or is going to respond with a level of intensity that isn't shown by little old me that grew up in a little farm town that didn't experience a lot of hardships whatsoever. So again, it all comes down to how personal I guess you're willing to make it, or in your mind, what are you scared of? And I think that's where a lot of justifications come from, is things that we fear, which usually comes around with the unknown territory. But I digress. My whole point here is that justification is a path of logic, whether it's flawed or not. Honestly, I feel like, it could even be a flawed justification, or, the difference between good justification and bad justification, I guess, really comes like from the outcome, right? If you justify to shoot somebody and the outcome is that you saved a few lives from shooting somebody, that's a good justification. So, I guess it all lies within the income, or the outcome rather. What do you guys think?
You want to go AK anime?
Hang on, I'm near my boss right now.
You good? Um, yeah, I would agree with you on that, side. Just because, I mean, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head as far as like it's just kind of two different perspectives. How the way you grow up, the way you view it. I mean, you would say if someone, okay, if you were at a concert, someone bumped you, right? Maybe it was multiple times, enough to get you a little aggravated, but you still had the logic to be like, hey, you keep running into me, then I'm gonna have to go and talk to a security guard or something, right?
Well, and
Versus like,
to put my own personal flavor on it, if
right,
the
right,
scenario had happened where somebody was bumping into me constantly, I would keep giving them the benefit of the doubt and just be like, hey, man, I'm behind you. Can we relax a little bit? I get it. We're having fun. I'm having fun as well. I just, I don't want you to trip. I don't want you to step on me. Whatever the case may be, I would try to frame it in a positive way, but at the same time, I would also try to nix it immediately. But I would absolutely not call a security guard, because I know that you haven't been to many concerts. They're useless.
right. Okay, see, but
Yeah.
okay, let's say like the kid that grew up in the rich neighborhood type, right?
Yeah.
The one that's like going to snitch ASAP,
Yeah.
right? So, okay, I want to put that in a specific scenario. Let's take it out of the concert.
Okay.
One kid, a rich kid, privileged life, good neighborhood, goes to the hood, right?
Yeah.
This is a scenario. You have a friend that lives a different lifestyle than you, but you go down to where he's from. Somebody does something to you, he bumps you, and you're like, "Hey, man, you doing whatever you're doing. I'm not comfortable. Can you stop? Or I'm gonna like, I'll call the police. You're at a party." And then instead, you're trying to do the right thing. You're trying to, like you're doing something uncomfortable. If you keep doing it, like I'm gonna have to get somebody involved because that's not what I do. And I've asked you nicely. Then, depending on what side of town you were on, you can get beat up, right? And
Yeah.
that's to them, that's justifiable because you're trying to snitch or do something that could put someone in jail for multiple years. That's how this group may view it. But then you take the kid that's not from the best neighborhood to a rich neighborhood. He goes around and does certain things that may make the people in that neighborhood not feel safe. And someone tells them, hey, uh, I don't like this. I'm going to call the cops. And then they do it. And now he has, like, whatever charges they try to get him on, trespass and all this other stuff. You're justified in either scenario depending on where you're from.
Yeah.
People could be like, I can understand why you would do that. He was causing, he was playing loud music in this neighborhood. We don't do this, blah, blah, blah. You got a ticket, whatever the hell. And it's justifiable. But when you go to another place, it may not be. So, I mean, I really agree with, like, it's really personal. And it's interesting to think that maybe everything that we do is just personal. And it's up to, I guess, where we come from. That makes it very justifiable to us, because it's like, this is the norm where I come from.
And you're absolutely right. Everything that we do is extremely personal, right? And every decision that we make is personal. And that was actually kind of the preface of this podcast. And when I was going through and talking about, the idea I had for this podcast, I don't want people to justify their actions through a entity online telling them that nothing is their fault and it's all the fault of women, for example, right? The most common thing that you hear nowadays is, the reason why you don't have a high value girl or whatever is because, high value girls are chasing after men that have crazy jobs and make crazy money, and they want no time, they have no time for you. And,
Back in 6 million.
Yeah, and it's so easy to buy into, it's who doesn't want to be told that, oh, so it's nothing I'm doing wrong. It's, it's just women. It's women nowadays, and nobody stops to think, like, is that really the case? Am I going to have a fulfilled relationship with that type of woman? And the real underlying thing of justification in general is it is extremely personal, but it's also super relatable too. Because again, the easy path in life is to blame Joe Schmo, Jane Doe, like whoever you can to explain why you're not where you're supposed to be. Oh, my boss isn't letting me get promoted because he doesn't think I'm ready for the position. And in that example, chances are that person never tried to pursue any other position, didn't try to pursue anything other than that one promotion to get a job or that pay raise, didn't look to a superior for any help, didn't take any other extra steps. And I mean, the obvious one is, especially if you're in a career looking for other companies to work for that would give you that opportunity. There's like, anytime that somebody says it's this guy's fault or it's that guy's fault for this, all you can control is your actions. And when you justify your action against somebody solely based on the fact that they're not making it easy for you, I feel is a flawed logic, I feel specifically. And back onto podcasts that fuel that, they feel justified in feeling that. Like, hopefully it's because they believe in it, because that would be the less evil. I consider it evil. It might not be actually evil, but for me, it would be less evil of them to actually buy into the garbage logic that it is absolutely everyone else's fault but your own for why you're not where you want to be, versus the latter, which is they absolutely know that there is a modicum of personal responsibility that every person has to have, but they're so weak-willed that they buy this garbage and they'll buy my merch and sing my praises day in and day out, so I'm going to manipulate them. You know, to me, that's just evil and terrible, but it's absolutely something that probably is happening. I wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't even be the worst thing at this point, but again, if anybody takes anything away from this podcast, I would like to train their brain to think their way through issues in a way that will help them understand what level of personal responsibility they need to take to get where they need to go. And you might not think about it, but the topic of justification in and of itself, understanding what justification is and having these dialogues and these conversations could actually help you in your real life, because the next time you want to do something to somebody because they've done something to you, you know, think about this conversation. Think about it in the guise of, you know, should it be justified, or am I justified? And, you know, why am I going to try to justify this? And really turn your situations, justify in your mind that you need to get better because the situation happened to you, right? So a real life example is this podcast. I recently lost my work from home job. I really enjoyed it, and it wasn't the work. I didn't enjoy the work, but I enjoyed the fact that I was home. I was able to hang out with my 2-year-old and my 6-year-old constantly. I'd be able to greet my 6-year-old when she came home from school. I was able to help their grandparents really quickly if they needed any help with the 2-year-old, so on and so forth. It was just a lot of fun. I was let go from the company, and it made things really hard monetarily until I could find another job, which, you know, it was pretty hectic. I don't know what COVID did to the job market. I thought it raised it, but apparently people are just not interested in hiring anybody right now. But I digress. You know, I never once blamed the companies that didn't hire me, because, you know, I either I was consistently not what they were looking for, or, you know, I just didn't have my resume outright, so on and so forth. But none of that is the company's fault for not hiring me. I never felt responsible. I never felt like they were responsible for things, and I came out less emotionally scarred from it for that reason. I feel like if I blamed everybody until I was blue in the face, it would have turned out a hell of a lot worse for myself, because I wasn't going to take any personal responsibility and get better. But now that I am working again and everything else, and I'm trying to start this podcast to, you know, really get all of these ideas that swell my head constantly out on quote unquote paper, but you know, have them logged. It's all in the name of bettering myself, and anybody who wants to be around for the journey, I hope that we can bring that monicum of, you know, self-help that maybe you can't afford, or maybe you're too scared to start. You know, these are all things that I think about and justify with my content. And it's always something that I've wanted to do, because anytime that I hear anybody complain about something or talk about something bad that's happened to them, and, you know, they want to lash out in the worst way, they want to make somebody's life a living hell because of it, and they refuse to look inward. Like, you know, what can you do better? What can you do to change this outcome? How can you justify, like, what's the most common thing that you hear guys say all the time? They watch a Marvel movie and they're like, God damn it, man, I want to look like Thor. Or I want to look like Captain America. You know, like, look at those fucking abs. You know how many bitches I would pull in with that body? And then you go, okay, so why don't you just start working out? Research a good diet for yourself. You know, do this. Justify getting in shape or, you know, the really terrible, like, in my opinion, unhealthy way to look quote unquote good. You know, really dive into it, and they go, no, dude, it's unrealistic. I can never have that body. They're like, I love food too much. You're like, okay. So you justify the way you look by stating that you like food, and you're not willing to make sacrifices to get that body. Therefore, it's a null issue. If you're happy where you're at, then you're happy where you're at. There's really nothing else for it. And, you know, 9 times out of 10, it ends there. And then people go, well, like, oh, it's just not fair, man. I want that body. And you go, okay, well, you know, these are the set things that everybody has said that'll work. And, you know, there you go. That would be your lifestyle then. It's not just to change your diet and overnight you get a 6-pack. It's a lifestyle change. And you're going to have to dedicate a lot of time to maintaining the sculpted body. And, you know, it was like, nobody's got time for that. I don't want to do that. Oh, my God, that sounds like hell. Okay, then it's not for you. Then I guess you can justify that you're happy where you're at now. You know, and you're not necessarily unhealthy. You know, you might stand to lose a few pounds, but, you know, you definitely look good. You're not obese, and you don't have any medical issues due to your weight. So what's the point? You know, it would just be essentially for vanity at that point. And then, you know, they go like, oh, but, you know, it's just not fair. Why do these movie stars get? And you're like, if you want that lifestyle, then embrace the lifestyle. If you don't want the lifestyle, then those aren't the rewards that you're looking for. You know, like that's not what you want then. Because the one thing that I've learned in life, like, absolutely, is if you want the end results, then you're going to fall in love with the grind to get those end results. It's like, for me, music was one of those things. Like, I wanted the end result of being able to compose a rock metal, you know, like a song that would be performed in a traditional band setup, 2 guitars, bass, drums, and maybe keyboard and vocals. I wanted to be able to do that myself, so I set the goal to learn guitar, learn how to play the bass, learn to play the drums, and all of it was self-taught, but I enjoyed it every day coming home and jamming every single day. I enjoyed that. It didn't feel like work to me, and that's a lot of people like the idea of having an end result, but if they don't like the grind, then I don't think you're going to feel fulfilled at the end of that page. You're not going to feel justified. It's not going to feel like you justified enough, or that it was justified enough to reach that end, because the grind was so hellish. It was so terrible. And I mean, everybody likes money, right? Everyone loves money, and that's the end of most work weeks for a job, is you get paid. Did you enjoy that grind?
Absolutely not.
Do you think that this can be a fulfilling career for you?
Where I'm at right now? Oh, hell no.
But I posed that question to you too, Dave, because I know that I think you're in a better financial situation than me and Anime are, because your job.
Yeah, that man is.
Yeah, because your job pays really well. But do you enjoy what you do for work every day, even the nitty gritty stuff?
No.
Yeah. So
The means to an end.
exactly. And if you can justify that, and you're completely like, you know, obviously you're not happy in the job itself. However, if you're happy with the end result enough to justify the grind, then that's all that. Yeah, that's it. That's the end of the discussion. Or in that topic alone, it's easier to say, like, I'm not going to find anything better. My skill set right now is being properly utilized. I might not enjoy the fact that I can only monetize this skill set, but it's the best that I can find. That's absolutely fair. And there's really nothing that you or I can do about that. Other than, finding something that you like and finding a way to monetize that skill set, which again, a lot easier said than done, but the point is that there is a way to do it. You just you have to have the right discipline for it. But again, I guess my main issue is with people that justify where they're at by blaming other things and not taking personal responsibility, or taking so much personal responsibility and begging for growth, even though they're not willing to step out and actually start growing themselves into a better person or into somebody that would achieve those goals, putting themselves in a desirable situation, I guess. But that's really all I have a problem with, people using their superpower of justification to continue to keep themselves in an undesirable spot while they constantly tell everybody that they're in an undesirable spot. That's my main qualm. And that's why we're going to switch gears here a little bit. I want to talk about what we could do to maybe give ideas to use that superpower of justification for good. I've been rambling for probably the past hour here, and I can speak for another half hour to an hour about using the superpower for good. So I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to speak now before I have the floor again. Do you guys have?
Or what?
Do you have any?
So do you want to go first on this?
Do I want to go first? Ooh, okay. Why not? I haven't been talking for a little bit. I have been listening though. Don't get that wrong. Using justification for good.
And let me, to make it a little bit easier to answer, this could be good for, family, loved ones, or just good for yourself.
Okay.
Just in the sense of bettering a situation.
All right, so let me use my job as an example. I work in a hospital, and I clean. That is what I do. That is why you hear so much noise when I'm, unmuted. So within my current situation of living, I have to travel every single month. And a lot of people would be like, well, you can just better your situation by moving to where you have to travel to every single month. It's a little more complicated than that. But right now, with where I work, they are very cooperative with me, and they give me the time off that I need to travel. But I'm tired of the job because I'm not using a skill set that I desire to use. So I can manipulate my voice. I do voice impressions, voice acting. That is the skill set that I desire to use, which ironically enough, I'm pretty sure is what Slay also would like to use. But I haven't used it, and I always justify it with I have anxiety and am too scared to do so. And then I also justify why I have my job is because they give me the time off I need and they cooperate. And I get, all kinds of different health benefits just while I'm at the hospital. Come on now. But, so yeah, I use those excuses a lot, almost every single day, to myself. I question what I'm doing every single day. Like, why am I still here? Why haven't I taken that leap of faith, swallowed the anxiety, and just dive in? And let me put it this way, into the sense of, so to say, you're swimming in a pool. You know what's in the shallow end, or so to say, you're in the ocean and you're in the shallow. You know what's in the shallow because you can see the shallow, you can feel it. But once you swim out deep enough, you don't know what's under you. That's what everybody's scared of, is going into the unknown. They don't know what's there. I justify myself by doing that for not doing what I'm doing, but I know that doesn't have anything to do with justifying things for good. But I also say I justify my job because I feel like I am doing something good. So that is another reason why I continue to stay with my job. I will clean hospital beds, surgical rooms, everything, and especially right now with this time going on where there's a lot of viruses or different things, everything needs to be cleaned because cleaning is the first defense in not getting sick. So I justify me keeping my job because I feel like I am doing a good deed of cleaning, so that way everybody in my area where I live that comes to the hospital I work at will stay healthy while here, and they do not have to worry about risking their health. That's all I got.
That's totally fair. Uh, I don't know if you're planning on leaving right after the podcast, but I have some. I'll talk to you after the podcast. But
all right.
so, Davey, is there anything that you want to add, or kind of like really go in with a way that you can use justification in your everyday life to turn it into a super tool? If you're talking to us, Davey, I didn't hear a thing you just said.
You hear me?
Now I can.
Okay. I was wondering what happened.
Barely.
But I was saying a super tool for good or just a regular just a super
Like a super tool for yourself, for others, good or bad, I guess, at this point. I would prefer it to be good. I'd like it to
tool?
be a
Right.
little inspiring.
Right. No, and if I'm being honest, I would like to recycle the giving somebody $20 or over tipping on food that you get. I mean, it's simple things like those simple gestures that I believe that you can justify doing just as easily as you can justify not holding a door open for a woman, or somebody walking in behind you at a gas station. The same reason you can justify. I mean, running into somebody and not apologizing, like, oh, it was an accident, I didn't mean to, like, but you still ran into somebody, you should acknowledge it. I think that you can do that for the kind things as well, whether it be you're an athlete, stopping and genuinely, taking a photo with kids, doing things like that. It's like, yeah, everybody knows you are who you are, but you never know. These kids look up to you. They watch every game that you play, and their dream is to be like you one day. And I get it; it gets tiring. There's millions of kids all over the world, but do you know how many people or how many kids in the world never get to know that feeling? That everybody wants to be like you. Everybody wants to, you know, do the things that you can do and get paid a certain amount of money to do it. I mean, that's a lot of kids' dream, whether it be you want to be a musician, you want to be the Smiths, the Kiss, or you want to be Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. You want to be Tom Brady and Randy Moss. Like, there's just so many different things that I feel like, especially people of, I mean, you don't even have to be rich. You can be a normal person, but it's easy to not want to do things, and I think that's kind of the way our society has gotten into. It's just like easy to turn a blind eye to a lot of things versus just being accountable and trying to be that person that you claim that you are and that you want the rest of the world to be. We just tend not to do it for whatever reason because it's just easy not to do it. But yeah, sorry for the rant.
No, absolutely good points from both of you, and uh, a good path of really good justification. An example of that from anime, doing what you got to do for not only the betterment of his life, his child's life, but just society in general, being on the front lines, trying to help whoever he can by keeping shit clean, especially in this time of uncertainty with all of the sickness that ails us right now.
Yes, sir.
So, kind of a general consensus of using your superpower justifications for good usually comes down to making good, widely considered moral decisions. I think is what we're all getting at here, as far as what we would like to see everyone use their power of justification for. So I'm gonna simplify it even further from then, right? And unfortunately, anime, I'm gonna pick on you
Yes,
because
Poppy.
because you're the only one that specifically had said an aspiration or a dream that you have that you justified away. And I'm sure among the other thoughts that you had were like, and there's no guarantee that I'll ever make it. I have this natural talent, but what if, somebody training me just doesn't think that I have what it takes? What if the industry doesn't think I have what it takes? What if I fail every role that I try to get into?
Now, before you cut me, can I cut myself?
Sure.
Don't be like me. Don't want to stay inside the safe little box. Don't stay in the shallow end of the pool or the ocean. Go out there. Do what you dream and what you aspire to do, because at the end of the day, if you don't do it, you're going to be stuck in an endless loop, in an endless cycle. You can't say, oh, well, I would really like to do this, unless you try to do it. Don't complain unless you go the extra mile. If you feel like, in my situation, you want to do voice acting, you can manipulate your voice, you have that God's gift of natural talent, use it. Don't wait for the opportunity for it to come up to shine where it's your moment. No, don't wait for your 15 minutes. Create your 15 minutes. You take the extra step. You don't wait. You do. And even if that means there's going to be a little extra steps, a little mile, even further than the mile that you just took to get where you are, do it. Don't be like me. Don't play it safe. Especially while you're young. I'm 21 years old. I'm playing it safe, and I shouldn't. I mean, for some of my circumstance, yes, I should be playing it safe while going to the deep end. And I don't. Go ahead, Slay.
All right. Well.
Slay me.
Well, I wasn't going to rip you a new asshole. I was going to try to give you some knowledge to weaponize, as it were, your power of justification. And I hope this translates well to any other person doing it. But if you can put food on your table, and if everybody's living comfortably and you're in a good spot to, focus on some hobbies, and you think that you're pretty good at your hobbies, and, this would be fulfilling your life to the fullest, then what you want to do is try to justify leaning into your hobby more. So ways that can be is, if you feel like you're really good at video games, stream yourself playing some video games, learn the culture of stream, learn how to do it, learn how to use your things, learn what you need to do to be successful, and just lean into it little by little. And every single time you feel like something hard is coming up, or like something is becoming a little bit more time consuming, whatever the case may be, use your power of justification to justify taking the time to learn it. And again, it all boils down to, if you want something, you need to set yourself up for success to do that one thing. Even if it seems like an insurmountable task, there's ways to break it down for it to become manageable, and you just need to justify your way to doing it. Whether it be justifying to yourself, to your significant other, what have you. Whatever the case is, find a way to make it work for yourself. So the reason why I was going to pick on anime is because he specifically had said that he wanted to do voice acting, and because I recently had the thought of doing voice acting things, I leaned into it really hard with the platform that I created through streaming, because ever since I watched the first dubbed Dragon Ball Z, I was like, yep, that's something I want to do. I want to yell into a mic and sound really awesome. So, and obviously born with a much deeper voice than normal. A lot of people have always said that I've had a voice for radio and so on and so forth. Honestly, that's why we're here. Davey is the last person in my life that had said, you should do a podcast or do radio because you got a soothing voice for it. But again, you
Maybe
justify.
even if I have a good voice.
Yeah, exactly. Davey's
I
just a
don't see
nice
how.
guy. He justifies being nice a lot.
Thank you. So you just proved that I got an ugly voice by going, yeah, Davey's just a nice guy.
Nah, man. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a tangent. Apologize, guys. That's kind of my whole thing on Twitch and how I was blessed enough to meet Slay. If you don't know, one of the friends of the show, Content Ho, on Twitch, I was on his stream, and he just so happened to be talking to Slay. I got in the chat, was talking about some of the things going on. I had an interaction with Slay, and then I went and followed his channel. We started talking about things. Told him I was doing a podcast. I'm not putting the name out. And he was talking about, people told him that he should do it, and I was like, that is a fact. And it's like, you can always tell somebody, hey, well, I'm doing this, or somebody's doing that. They're like, nah, bro, you shouldn't do it. But it's like, there's certain things that people, if you can acknowledge something in somebody, because I know it's hard for a lot of people to boost, and it's weird. It's harder for people to boost other people up instead of themselves. Whenever it's like everything is, we've been saying, it's a group effort. If you want to run a business, you have to have employees of some sort. It's a group effort to get everybody to the point where they want to be, and for us to not boost each other or to give confidence to somebody that you see that has potential in doing something because they just have the voice for it, the athletic ability for it, the ability to play an instrument, and they have a potential to do something well in it. We tend to hate on it for some reason. And I would never want somebody to be held back by something I said that could be the next Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, somebody that can be amazing, that has all the potential in the world, but for some reason doesn't want to do it because I chose, instead of being positive or justifying being nice, I justified being an asshole because I'm insecure about whatever that I can't do what they can do. So I apologize for the tangent, but I just think it's more important to uplift people, especially at this point in your life. We're seeing suicides, different things like that. People going through hardships in life, whether it be food shortages, all this other stuff, and it's like we still finding ways to be mean when we all need to be taking care of each other and making sure everybody's okay. But sorry.
Well, with all of that being said, it sounds like you're using your superpower justification to try to be the light in someone's life, trying to be that beacon for them, trying to give them some semblance of go-getterness, being that kick in the ass to do it. So among that being an example, a real practical way to use your power of justification. Again, I know I've been talking this up, and I hope that it I hope it comes through. But for Anime's predicament, right? He's working full time. He's got a kid, a state away, right? You said you're in Ohio.
I'm in Indiana.
Oh no, you're in Indiana. Never mind.
I'm from Ohio.
Yeah. Okay. I couldn't remember if you were still living there or not, but okay. So you're in Indiana right now. So a few states away, you got a kid. You know, in your predicament, all of your free time at this point, you know, I don't know what it goes into. I think right now you said that you're starting to do streaming and stuff. It's always a good start. But let's say you stop all of what you're doing in your free time now. So right now, in this moment, you have a clean slate. You have nothing planned. You sit down and you think, all right, so I'm really going to lean into creating a career for myself in voice acting. What are some tools that I need, and what do I need to learn? So we're starting down the path of justification. I'm going to need some sort of microphone, right? I don't know how serious this is going to get. I'm going to treat it like a hobby, and I'm going to shop cheap. So, you know, I'm going to justify looking something up like, you know, cheap microphones, used microphones, what have you. And then you kind of look up things going on as far as what would be best practice now for, you know, making a studio. Something to record in so I can start sending in auditions. Again, so on and so forth. You're just toiling with it at this point. But you go online and you're starting to look around a little bit. You're starting to really see how the industry is starting to work. Now you're going to justify talking to people that have either A, made a living, or B, you know, but all of this started with the justification of just pursuing a hobby, right? I'll shop used for a mic so I can start recording shit at home. You know, I guess I could watch a whole bunch of dubbed anime, even though I'm completely against it, and I feel like subbed is much better. You know, what have you. I want to learn, therefore I'm going to put myself out there and do it. So all of your time and energy, how you choose to spend it, is ultimately up to you. Prioritizing things over, you know, other things, and leaving hobbies on the back burner that could potentially be monetized, that's on you. And a lot of people are going to have arguments like, oh, but my significant other hates it. You know, I have to spend a lot of time with my children. And all of that's true. And I'm in the same boat where my significant other would rather me do all of this when the children go to bed. So I only have a few hours windows to really sit down and podcast, but in stream in general. But that's what I do. That's what I do with my time, is I sit down and do all of this when everybody goes to bed. So my justification for, you know, everything always comes back to, what am I willing to do to get ahead? What am I willing to do to be successful if I was going to try to monetize everything? And it really comes down to, as we've talked about plenty of times, how you feel personally. If this is something that you're going to take seriously, it all comes down to your personal belief. Because there is a lot of people out there that, let's say, you know, somebody who's been working on a pipeline for years and years has a natural talent to sing. When I mean natural talent, I mean their voice is one of the prettiest things that you ever see in your life. But he also believes in a good, honest, hard day's work. Is that person going to pursue a career in music? Most likely not. That person's not going to try to do anything with music, and they're happy where they're at. Is that wrong? That you would pursue that? You would sit there and say, I'm amazing at singing, and I have a passion for it. I'm going to try to monetize it. Is either one wrong? No. It's personal. And it really all comes down to how you feel about your life. So next time you think about, as anime put it, swimming into that deep end from the shallow end, the next time you think about it, don't make it so nihilistic. Sure, it's scary, but it's only scary because you have no idea what's going on. It's easy to get over that fear, especially when all you have to do is research it a little bit. Look it up. Figure it out. Figure out what's so figure out why it's scary to you. And I guarantee you that you'll sit there after 10 minutes of researching it and you're already understanding more than you have in your whole life of, voice acting in general. And you go, oh, well, that's actually, why was I even worried about this? I don't have to worry about anything. It's not like I quit my job to do this, or it's not like, and obviously if you get that far in your process, in your journey, that, decisions like that start to happen, hopefully you can justify it through, I've already made equal to what I'm making now doing voice acting. I auditioned and got this really huge role, so on and so forth. But my point to you is that in the beginning stages, most of the fear that you have is not, not really justifiable. You think it's justifiable because you have no idea what you're doing, and it's completely fair to feel that way. But there are so many avenues that you can take to pursue any passion at this point. It feels like social media right now is just riddled with a multitude of ways to monetize anything. How many times have we heard the whole shtick of becoming a salesman on Amazon, because you can just wholesale buy ridiculously cheap things and then sell them at a 300% markup, and it's actually successful. It's crazy to me that we still have people, unfortunately, like anime, that are freaked out by monetizing a passion because, for whatever reason. But
Now, I'm sorry to cut you off there.
Yeah.
But I would also like to add, I haven't always just sat in the corner too scared. So I don't think I told you or Davey this, but not too long ago, about, 2 months ago, I actually had an interview to be casted into a movie. Now, this is a very popular series of movies. It has its whole own universe. And that movie was Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Ooh.
I had an interview to be casted into it, but I chose family over that because I was with my son. Does that give justification for maybe like half an hour interview? No, because I still could have done it. And who knows? I could have got a major part.
You could have.
Yeah, but I won't know because I didn't take the leap of faith to do the interview. I had the interview. I had set up in a time, everything for the interview. But then I looked into a lot of the factors. Okay, this is a live action movie. I'm going to have to take time off work, which means I'm not going to be getting paid. I'm going to have to travel. I I'm not sure if that comes out of my pocket or their pocket, etc., etc. I looked at it that way instead of going, all right, let's do this shit. So, again, don't be afraid to dive into the deep end, but I'm also going to throw into this. Keep some logic with you. Make sure you are safe.
Okay. Well, that's the key word is, you need to justify things with the guise of being safe, and that's really where the fear should erode for you, because you always have your safety net. And by all means, this is not a call to action. This isn't drop everything, pursue your dreams right now. That's stupid. Don't do that.
Oh, I know.
But
I've been leaning into trying to get more and more equipment to actually start doing it.
well, I can tell you, for one, you need a PC. But two,
Yeah, I know. I'm broke. Okay. Do you want to pay for my grand plane tickets every month?
No.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I no. It just started work again. I don't have the cash. I barely have the cash to eat lunch right now. But with everything that we were talking about, taking baby steps and justifying, bigger steps under the guise of, what have you. That's all there is, and that's all there should be. Justify your next step by understanding that it is exactly your next step. And always make sure that when you're leveraging, or when you're deciding to take an action, that you're being safe. Because what's the point of justifying it if you're not being safe? You're trying to justify why things are happening, and if you feel like, well, my justification's really weak, and probably a lot of people go like, why the fuck did you do that? And you give them that reason, and they go, that's a stupid reason. Then chances are it's probably a stupid reason. That's another line that I feel like a lot of people don't think about is, even though you don't have to listen or care about what other people think, they are a good resource a lot of the times to, if the general consensus is that you're about to do something really stupid, chances are you're about to do something really stupid. But I digress again. The big thing here is that everybody understands their limitations better than they know the limitations of themselves better than anyone else, because the person in question, live with themselves a lot more than the latter. And
sorry for the noise.
And again, when you are paralyzed with fear about even taking a small step into that direction, you need to understand why you're scared. You need to understand why what you're doing is scary, and you have to justify ways to make it a lot less scary. Maybe it's so scary because it's a much bigger leap than you would have ever thought possible before. And in that case, as long as everything's safe, and as long as you're not really giving up any structure that you have now and leaning on it a little more, you're just putting yourself in a position to do that in the future, then it's not really that scary. Or if you're about to make that final decision to lean on, whatever passion you have, your means of justification need to be there. So, with all of that being said, your superpower of justification can and will go both ways within any point in time. And you just need to understand whether you are using your powers for good or if it's all falling apart and you're just way too scared to even deal with it. But I think that's a really good place to end here for this show. I know I said at the end of last night's show that I was going to try to do this every Tuesday and Thursday, but I'm going to switch it up. It's going to be every Thursday, Friday. We're going to do it back to back. Oh, hey, how's it going, guys? We're going to be doing this Thursday, Fridays each week. We're going to record them. If you're interested in the topic, it's going to be up on YouTube where I'm streaming this as well. We're going to try to keep everything archived, and eventually I'll figure out how I can get it on places like Spotify so you can listen to us in the car, yada, yada. But with all of that being said, like I said, that's a good place to end it. You guys have any final thoughts or anything like that?
I don't think I really have much except for try to justify doing the right thing. I mean, I know the right thing, like Slay said, and I think we came to the conclusion could vary depending upon the person and your personal view on the right thing, but something that can benefit, if not yourself, somebody else. I mean, we justify doing the wrong things that are probably more severe a lot easier than doing something that we would consider uh, monumental in someone else's life, no matter how minor it may seem to us. So, just try to justify doing something nice for somebody, man. It's really not that hard. But maybe that's just my opinion as well. But other than that, man, you know what it is. KO Davey, y'all keep it safe. I'll pass it over to Anime.
All right. So to kind of go on with what KO Davey was just saying, doing the right thing. The right thing isn't always going to be the easiest thing. There's times where doing the right thing will be the hardest thing. But you have to think. Look at all the different outcomes you're gonna get. And just take the time. Justify each and every outcome. Further those outcomes on where it'll lead. What will happen to you, what will be consequences, what will be rewards. And just take it one step at a time before you go and do anything irrational. Think. Put logic into your justification, because there are times where logic can be thrown in. Justify what you're doing, why you're doing it. And more importantly, love yourself. Don't be like me. I say to myself every single day, I hate myself. Love yourself, because when you love yourself, your whole input and your whole justification will change. And don't be too scared to step outside the box, to go into that deep end, even if it just may be for a short period of time. But this is the Anime King 112. Over and out.
Awesome. Alrighty, guys. Like I said, it's going to be available on YouTube immediately. So if you enjoyed this, and if you unfortunately only caught us on the tail end here, feel free to look up Slay the Ghost on YouTube. Check it out. If you're a fan of it, obviously subscribe. Get that notification when we go live to record this, or whenever it's put up again. But with all of that being said, I hope everybody has a wonderful evening, and I hope that we were able to inspire at least a few voice actors. I hope maybe some musicians as well. But either way, keep it classy, guys.